explosions have been heard and smoke has risen in the Venezuelan capital of Caracas. The US President Donald Trump ordered strikes on sites inside Venezuela, including military facilities, as has been reported in the last few minutes by CBS. George Ellison is LBC's reporter, joins me in the studio with the very latest. Morning, George.
Morning, Henry. Yes, as you say, at around sort of 2 a.m. local time, there were reports of explosions and low-flying aircraft in the capital, Caracas. We've seen pictures of quite large explosions and smoke, as you say, rising above. Apparently, a few neighbourhoods are without power at the moment. CNN reporters who are in the city say that their hotel rooms shook, given how loud the explosions were. In the last few moments, we've had a statement from the Venezuelan government who've said it rejects, repudiates and denounces the US's military aggression. They've gone on to say that such aggression threatens international peace and stability, and that the country has declared a state of emergency. Now, this has obviously been building for some time. There's a lot of tension in the region with the seizure of oil tankers, with strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean, the legality of which is certainly questionable from the US's point of view. Trump has never been a big fan of Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, and has been using the alleged complicity in drug trafficking as a sort of stick to beat the country with. As for, we haven't heard any more reports of strikes at the moment, so whether this was a one-and-done sort of operation remains to be seen. We know the Trump administration likes that sort of thing, given what they did in Iran, although, as I've said, there's been strikes on boats and on ports and seizures of oil tankers, so this might be part of a plan, but we'll bring you the very latest as and when we get it.
Look, Maduro is not a democrat. He is an autocrat. Venezuela is not living currently in a state of democracy. The people of Venezuela have voted time and time again to say they do not want to live under an autocracy. But at the same time, it's really important that democracies work meaningfully to help the people of Venezuela to get their say, and that military action is not always the right solution, nor should imposing democracy be in the hands of, countries like the UK and the US. So I'll have to go away and see exactly what the US has targeted, how they've undertaken the strikes, and what their effect was that they were trying to achieve. But be in no doubt, Maduro is not a friend to the UK.
Well, we know that starting at about 2 a.m. local time this morning, US airstrikes took place in the capital. The primary target seems to have been a military base, an air base, but also an area where Venezuela's top brass live, right in the center of Caracas. And helicopters have also been seen, which is unusual, which suggests that perhaps some kind of ground operation may also be beginning. Now, we know the target. They're going to try to overthrow Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, but we don't yet know the full picture of the method, whether this is airstrikes on its own or whether a ground operation is going to follow.
We've seen a war of words over the last few months, in particular between the President Maduro, as you mentioned, and Donald Trump. Could you give us some context as to what that has been regarding and how we've got to this point?
Yes, they've accused Maduro of being one of the world's biggest drug traffickers. They've said his regime is kept afloat on drug money. They've officially named him as being the head of the Cartel de los Solos, which is the cartel of sons. And that gives them a legal basis. You might say a tenuous legal basis, but a legal basis for action against him. And the United States has already deployed up to 20% of its entire navy in the Caribbean. And that's been happening over the last few months. So we knew that Trump was going to have to make an imminent decision whether to use that firepower or send it home. And now he's decided to use it. And that's a pretty remarkable decision.
What sort of response are we likely to see? We've seen the Venezuelan government condemn it and condemn the aggression, but is there anything more we expect them to do?
Venezuela is in no position to resist an American strike. The Venezuelan military is extremely weak. And if this video footage that we've seen of helicopters in the skies over Caracas is correct, well, that would suggest that the Americans already have complete air dominance because, as you know, helicopters are quite vulnerable. You don't send them into contested airspace. So there's not very much militarily the Venezuelans can do about this. The question, as ever, is whether an air campaign has the effect of weakening a leader or rallying his population behind him. And we don't know the answer to that yet.
And how significant is it? We've seen a number of strikes, tens of strikes on these drug smuggling boats, as described by the United States, targeting mostly in the sort of Caribbean, being nearby, the waters there in the Pacific. How significant is it now that we have this on land?
This is a big escalation. As you say, the Americans have carried out dozens of strikes on what they say are drug boats in the Caribbean. At least 100 or so people have been killed in those strikes. But now they're actually going for what they would say is the head of the snake, is the main drug trafficker in chief sitting in Caracas. So this is an extraordinary escalation.